You motherfucking tube. It's your boy, Rilo Jenkins. Alright. I know nigga Big Mike, he brought back the topic of the viewership and the pay-per-view ratings. Great video. Zone hit it right on the head. It's kind of on the same subject. I've been meaning to try and make this video for the longest. It's just been hard. I just haven't had time to do it. And how to quite put it together. But overall, I just want to tell everybody to not get involved in a group thinking, the dogma thinking. Just because, for instance, Chocolatito being number one pound for pound. Just because they say that don't mean that we have to go by that. Just like because everybody was saying Floyd was number one doesn't necessarily mean that he should have been. Not saying that he shouldn't, but not necessarily saying that he should either. But this goes with the Canelo was the biggest pay-per-view star there is in boxing today statement that I keep hearing people regurgitate. And if one person says it and another person repeats it, then it shall be so. But that's not really the truth, because there are so many elements that make up whether a fight will be big on pay-per-view or not. First and foremost, history tells us that no matter who you are, you just can't fight anybody and get on pay-per-view and that shit's gonna be a smash. Now obviously, somebody like Mayweather or fucking Pacquiao or Cotto, Canelo, they damn near pretty much guaranteed about 200,000 no matter who they fight, I suppose, because it's just gonna be that many people who just order fights, period. Every single one that comes on, they're going to order it, no matter what. There's about 100,000 people that are going to order every single pay-per-view event there is. And when it comes to having big pay-per-view numbers, one of the main keys is the particular date that you fight on. Cinco de Mayo Saturday is the best day to have a pay-per-view. That would be a great day for all sporting events. Why they don't put boxing on NBC, or they didn't put boxing on NBC this year, Cinco de Mayo, I have no idea. Right after the Kentucky Derby, right after the NBA playoffs, we should be going right into a fucking boxing match. Great weekend to have fights. And whoever is fighting on that day is pretty much guaranteed to have some pretty decent numbers. And if you don't believe me, go back, do some research, and just look at the numbers. Mexican Independence Day and Cinco de Mayo have always been great days to have fights. The first fight to go platinum that didn't involve heavyweights, Oscar De La Hoya, Felix Trinidad, on Mexican Independence Day. Now, if Cotto and Canelo would have fought on Cinco de Mayo or Mexican Independence Day, I guarantee you that the numbers would have been better than what they were, which weren't bad numbers, but I guarantee that fight would have went platinum if they'd have fought on one of those days. Now here, the key is for fighters to squat on that day. if I was Triple G, I would squat on that day. It doesn't necessarily have to be pay-per-view, but he could just sit on that date. Any fight that happens on that day is going to do good numbers. Some fights will do great numbers. And as we seen last year, some fights will do astronomical numbers. So we have to get out of this group thinking mode of just because a few people said it, then it must be so. Because the evidence tells us that, just as, yes, Canelo's pay-per-view numbers are good, but let's think about it. Whose pay-per-view numbers do we have to compare him to? Is it Cotto's? Mayweather and Pacquiao's? What? Like, what do we have it to compare to? Because if you take Mayweather and Pacquiao out of the equation, then we only have Cotto and recently Triple G's to even compare it to. And when you take those numbers, then you say, well, Golovkin fought a guy whose fight prior to his fight on pay-per-view, fight wasn't even broadcast on TV. Canelo fought arguably the first or second biggest pay-per-view draw in boxing. And those two dudes together couldn't do $1 million. So when we compare Canelo's numbers, it's not much to compare it to when you take the other two guys out of the equation. And then if you put the other two guys' numbers into the equation, then his numbers is shit. So we got a guy like Terrence Crawford fighting Victor Postol. Now, I agree that this fight shouldn't be on pay-per-view. And not only should it not be on pay-per-view, it's on a shitty ass time of the year. Fights in July, especially for a 140 pounder, it probably won't do well. I can pretty much bet you that it won't. But if this same fight was to so happen on Cinco de Mayo or the Mexican Independence Day weekend, I guarantee you that the numbers would probably be double. So when this fight is done and that Thursday or Friday people start talking about how well did it do or how bad did it do, depending on which side of the fence you're looking from, we got to remember, he didn't fight on Cinco de Mayo, didn't fight on Mexican Independence Day. And if you just go do your research. Oscar De La Hoya, Ricardo Mayorga, damn near platinum. Mayweather, De La Hoya, double platinum. Mexican Independence Day, De La Hoya Trinidad, the first pay-per-view not involving heavyweights to go platinum. De La Hoya Mosley, 1, did roughly 500,000. De La Hoya Mosley 2 does almost $1 million, almost double. So when you take those dates and look at the numbers on those dates, Mexican Independence Day is always going to be between the 10th and the 20th of September. Cinco de Mayo is always going to be May, between the 1st and the 7th. Just look at all the pay-per-views on those dates. And not heavyweights, non-heavyweight fights. Tell me you don't see a pattern with those numbers. Now, if you still want to believe that Canelo is this huge mega star and all of this shit, or the biggest star in boxing, let's just wait until someone else is able to fight on those dates. It's It's your boy, Rollo Jenkins. Holla at your boy.